People are saying, you have 100 or so bilums in your house and you still want to make bilums. I said, it's part of me. I can't change. My name is Vicki Waine Kinai. I am from Papua New Guinea. I migrated to Australia with my family 15 years ago, and most of the time we've lived in Melbourne. I am a secondary school teacher by profession back in Papua New Guinea. Coming to Australia was like a huge change. I had to adjust myself to a lot of things because Papua New Guinea is just a small island nation, and it's a developing country. Most of the people up there live in rural communities, and I come from a town or province called Mount Hagen, Western Highlands province. Living in Melbourne, there were so many people. Most of the people I came across, I could identify different people because they were dressed up in their, cultural background, their religion, and I was thinking about my own culture, how I can represent myself living in Australia. So I started carrying my own bilum to the city. The first thing that happened was people connecting with me. They came up to me and they said, "Oh, are you a Papua New Guinean?" And I said, "Yes." So bilum is this bag. It's woven with end. It takes a long time. So people started telling stories about Bilum, and then I connected with them. So we became friends, and they started asking me, "Can you teach us how to make the Bilum?" Not only teaching, but we started telling stories, and they became interested. And that's how I started the weaving workshops. And in Papua New Guinea, there's so many thousands of cultures, and Bilum weaving is a culture that was for the people from the highlands. It was an obligation for the girls to make a Bilum, and also they must carry a Bilum. It was a sign of respect. When you get married, you will go and then you will have your own family, and in that bilum, you're going to carry food for the family. When the bilum gets older, you will use the bilum to store things. When you get married, you're gonna have a child that has to sleep in the bilum, because then you can carry the bilum on your head, and then your hands are free to work. In a family, the girls or daughters would sit with their mother and help each other to twist the rope and then start making the bilum. So it's a process. First, they have to harvest the fiber. I would give an example like a mulberry tree, because the bark can easily be, taken out. They're learning a new bilum, they start telling stories, and they make bilum, and it continues. It doesn't stop. Every village or community have their own style and pattern. I'll show you the example. This is like the drum, yeah, and if you look at the colors they choose, when they are dressing up, they do face painting and use these colors. They use white clay and some other dye, blue, and that's like their color. Today it's done like that because they can get wool, different colored wool, so they're all doing all these patterns. Just living in Australia, the experience of me seeing different things gave me the next level of thinking about what I can do with my weaving. So I have made, public installations. I did a series of workshops. I did a poem, and I talked about the dragonfly and the Truganina area itself, a new suburb that just came up. When we settled here, there was no houses. When I said that that was the place of the dragonflies, and also working with a lot of international and local artists doing collaborative work and exhibiting art. Two of the indigenous artists that I collaborate most of the time are Vicki Cousins and Bronwen Razum. They are indigenous weavers, and we've collaborated on a lot of projects because the kind of weaving they do is completely different to mine. Place patterns was one of the projects the Wyndham Council introduced to local artists within Wyndham. I did a huge weaving, and it was the pattern of my life transiting from PNG to Australia. But there's stories to it that I told at the exhibition. I created my own headdress. I have the headdress still here. This is what I created, in pieces like this, and I put them together. I have a drum, and I've got all the other things that I can wear to perform a traditional dance, and I can sing my traditional dance song. I've done a recent workshop with the Chinese community in Kensington, and this community, they don't know English, and they had a translator. They picked up the skill very quickly, and they were helping each other and talking in their own, language. So that was a different experience. It was like my art became like a language which we did not talk, but we were working, just observing and using fingers. I was weaving and they were weaving also. So the skill was transferred. I have a job, but the art practice that I am involved is taking me to so many places and meeting a lot of different people, working with little children, the seniors, and people of different age groups. And one of the organizations I'm like a committed to is the Multicultural Arts Victoria. I am one of the ambassadors. I'd like to continue this way because, I think this is the way I want to live in the art world, and the experience is fabulous. I'm happy